this is the second part of this story. She finally got rid of him and then showed up. And I really didn't think she was coming, but she really did leave and did show up and come and stay with us for a good while. And got her a couple jobs where she can make some decent money. And I just told her to save her money, and where she can, you know, she helped out with food and stuff like that. But I just told her to save her money because she was trying to get straightened out and get a place of her own. And then she finally meets another dude, and he's a truck driver. And he was an all right guy. I got along with him, but I just seen him here and there a few times, not many. But he seemed like he was all right dude. But they got together and stuff like that. He used to drive the double trailer FedEx semi trucks from Tennessee to Los Angeles, California. And he did a team where him and another dude did it, and they did it once a week. And but he used to tell me stories that when they would drive down the highway and stuff, sometimes they would, if they didn't want to pull over and stuff like that, they would just switch drivers when they was going down the freeway. Because one would sleep and the other one would drive, and one would they would switch places like that. And he did that for a long time. But I don't know what went bad with their relationship, because they ended up separating too. And I remember, as some time passed, and she ended up hooking up with another dude. And I went to their house, I think once or twice. And this was in Jasper, Tennessee. And I went there, and at this time, me and my lady split up. And then I'm like getting my kids on the weekends and stuff like that. And then she, like I said, I went to her mom's place a couple times where she had that new dude, and he had an important job, but he had to travel a lot. And something went rocky with that relationship, because, I was just glad that she had got her, got situated and got her a place and all that. But anyways, something happened, and my kids, when they were small, they told me that she had got, because I think she married that dude, but they had got divorced or split up or something like that. And I asked my kids, I was like, well, what all she take with her? And then my kids said, oh, she just took her coffee pot and her clothes, and that was it. And I thought, oh my God, that was just, I guess she just didn't want nothing from that dude, and I don't know what caused the breakup or anything like that. But that's just something my kids told me when they were small, And, but I thought that was crazy. But as time passed, I ended up, I hear that she buys, a dude buys her a trailer in Jasper. And it's a dude I know that's got plenty of money. Well, he buys her a trailer, and she stays in it for a while. But something happens that she didn't want it anymore or wanted to get rid of it or something. And I think what had happened is, I think the dude bought it for her thinking she was going to be his girlfriend. And that's just the way this dude was. He just had plenty of money, and he just thought if he did something nice for somebody, like buy him a trailer, that it meant you was his girlfriend. But that's not what she was. She wasn't rolling like that. And so anyways, I think she just gave him the trailer back. Because I think she took it just thinking he was just trying to help her, but he was thinking something else. But anyway, she gives it back. And then as time passes, I go get a job at a place called American Plastics. And when I get a job over there, I'm a machine operator. And my machine actually made lids, plastic lids. They made all kind of plastic stuff, like plastic cups that you get on the airplanes and the plastic cups you get in the motel rooms. And then they also make plastic lids that goes on like coleslaw and stuff like that. And that's what my machine did. And then they also make garbage bags, big plastic garbage bags, the clear ones. I think they made, I believe they made the dark ones too. But anyways, I get a job there. And then later, my brother gets a job there. And then, we taking breaks and stuff, but we don't really know the people there that good yet. And then once we go home, my brother said, hey, I talked to a guy that was a maintenance dude at that company. And he said he was your kids' grandpa. And I was like, what? He said, he talked about your kids and said he was their grandpa. And I was like, nah, maybe he's just got some grandkids that's got the same name as my kids. And he's like, nah, man, he mentioned your ex-old lady and all that. And I was like, oh, really? So that was a small world when when that happened, because I went to work over there, and then my brother went to work over there. Come to find out, the maintenance dude over there. What had happened is my ex-mother-in-law and my ex-old lady went to American Plastics way before me and got a job over there. And then once they got a job over there, my ex-old lady meets this dude over there and hooks up with him. And then my mother-in-law meets the maintenance man over there, and she hooks up with him. So now I don't know who hooked up with who first or whatever, but that's how it went down. And so my mother-in-law ended up getting married, I do believe, to that dude that was the maintenance guy at American Plastics and in Chattanooga, Tennessee. And then we're going home, and my brother's telling me, he's like, yeah, man, he's mentioned everybody's names, so my brother knows my whole family. So, I was like, wow, that's crazy. So later I found out that to be true, but that was no issue with me, you know, because like I said, me and her wasn't together, and it was just a small world that I had went to that company and went to work, and then my brother had, when he was taking a break, he was just chatting with the maintenance dude, smoking, smoking cigarettes, stuff like that. And then they just had a conversation about the dude's grandkids, which happened to be my kids. So that was, weird. But, after that, then I started, she started bringing the kids to me here and there, and started, keeping them on the weekends and stuff like that. But it was just weird how that encounter went. But it all worked out good and stuff like that. But it was just odd that, you run into something like that. And that don't happen to too many people that happens like that. You know what I mean? Where you'll end up going to work and running into somebody that, you know. And basically, he was their grandpa by being married to their grandma. You know what I mean? But my brother thought it was weird, and then he was telling me about it. I didn't even believe it at first, and then later I found out it was true. But that was something else. Because there's just a lot of things that's happened to me over the years there's some things that happened to me that I think that probably never happened to anybody. You know what I mean? And I'm going to get into them stories later. But I've just went through some stuff that, first off, when you hear it, you ain't gonna believe it. And then not only that, that's why I just feel that the things that's happened to me over the years, I think I'm probably the only one that it's happened to. And once you hear the stories, you'll be like, I ain't never heard that before. You know what I mean? So it's that kind of stuff right there. But that's just a small world. You just never know. Like when you separate from somebody, you never know who you might run into that knows them or, whatever. And then just things like that. And that's basically what happened at American Plastic. But getting back to Light Realty. When I was working for Light Realty, I made some good money. And he would let you work long as you want, many hours as you want. You write the hours down, turn them in on Friday morning. Every Friday morning, you'd go by the real estate company, turn your time in, and he would pay you in cash. And we did that for a long time. But anyways, he told me, he was like, hey, we're going to get ready to do a lot of painting and stuff, so you're going to need some help. So he was like, if you can get somebody that knows how to paint, I'll hire him. So I was like, all right. And so when I went home in East Ridge, my mother-in-law was staying with me. And like I said, when she came to town, she got 2 jobs. And then I was telling her that I'm going to need a painter, but I'm going to need a full-time painter. And then she was like, I can do it. And I was like, how you going to do it when you got 2 jobs already? And she said, well, I'm going to get rid of one of them because this is going to be a full-time job. and I know how to paint. And I was like, all right. And so, anyways, me and her started working. Me and her started working together, and then we needed two more people, and so I actually got my brother and his old lady a job too. So then it was me, my mother-in-law, my brother, and his old lady. So it's four of us in a group painting. So actually, we got a lot more done, and we covered a lot more ground as far as paint. But you know, we painted all downtown, all over St. Elmo, all over by Memorial Hospital, uh, around Holtzclaw, all over the Chattanooga area. Just wherever Light Realty had rental properties, that's where we is at. But they would actually do a good job because we did the painting. Then they had a crew that did armor guard to put armor guard doors on. Then they had a crew that did carpenter work if the porches needed to be repaired or whatever, or doors needed to be changed or something. So they really was spending some money and hooking them places up. And then some people, what we'd do, if we was some places, it would just be paint the outside, because they'd be like, well, somebody's living there, because the only time we'd paint the inside if the apartment was empty. But we met a lot of cool people and doing that, and sometimes they'd ask us, could we paint the inside of their house while we was painting the outside? And we would do it. We'd tell them, just move all your stuff to the middle of the room, and once you got it to the middle of the room, we'll come in there and throw paint tarps over the stuff and paint it real quick for you so that place will look nice, you know. So we did that, and some people tried to offer us money, but we wouldn't take it. And it was just a good deed we did. We met some cool people, you know, and if they're listening to this audio, they'll know who they are, you know. But yeah, we had a lot of fun working for Light Realty, you know, stuff like that. I remember one time we was, you know, because at lunchtime, you know, back in them days, because it was back in the day, you know. But at lunchtime we would eat, but we'd also have a beer, you know, when we ate lunch. And all of us would. My mother-in-law, me, my brother, and his old lady. And one time, the ladies are not working one day. I think it's like one Saturday. And they stayed home. I guess they wanted to rest or whatever. And they stayed home, and then it was just me and my brother. And we were painting. I believe it was in St. Elmo in Tennessee. And we were painting and stuff, and then all of a sudden, this girl comes running in to the apartment. And she's telling my brother, she's like, hide me, there's a guy after me and stuff like that. So my brother said, here, get in the closet. So he puts her in the closet, and but the guy didn't come in, you know, so she must have dipped in there, and he didn't see her dip in there or whatever. But she waited in there for about 30 minutes, and then she said, well, I'm going to leave, you know. So we told her when she goes out, just take off running, you know, so the dude couldn't catch her. And I don't know what he was chasing her for. But anyways, she took off running, and then we hear pop, 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 like that. And so me and him looked at each other, and it was late in the evening, too. And me and him looked at each other and said, "Hey, we need to wrap this up and take off," because we didn't know if it was firecrackers or if he was actually shooting at the girl. So we gathered up all of our stuff, put it in the car, and then as we was getting in the car, we noticed the bullet holes. The dude had shot the bullets through the back. It was a four-door wagon, and the back through both back doors. He shot the. It looked like a 22 because it was a small hole, but he had shot through the windows, and it just shattered the window, and just had the bullet hole. It didn't, the window didn't fall out or nothing. And so I was like, oh shit. I was thinking, when we was leaving, I was like, damn, now I'm going to tell the boss man about the window. He might be mad about that. So the next morning, I go to the Light Realty before we go to work, and I tell him, I say, hey man, I said, we was working yesterday, and we told him about the lady and the guy shooting and stuff like that, and he shot the back window. And then he was like, well, I will tell y'all this, maybe y'all just stay too late, working in St. Elmo or whatever. And that wasn't the case. The dude was just after the lady and was shooting at her is what happened. But then he was like, I don't know. He was like, I don't recommend y'all work late over on St. Elmo anymore. And then we was like, we don't recommend it neither because, but I thought he'd be mad about the window, about the car, but he wasn't. He was just saying, I recommend y'all not to work late in St. Elmo no more. So when we left, we was just laughing about it because, but that incident took place. And then this dude, now mind you, this guy that gave us a job and, paid us really well, but this really wasn't his money. It belonged to an older gentleman that he actually worked for. But, he had control of the money, so he was just, doing what he did with the money. But anyways, he come by. We worked with him for a good period of time. We all made good money. Then one day we're painting, and he comes by the house. We was actually at a house on the corner, and we were painting. And he comes by, and he was like, "Hey," he was like, "Next week's gonna be y'all's last week." And then we was like, what's going on? And he said, well, the company's letting me go. So everybody that works under me, I got to let them go, So after it all was said and done and he left, we decided we was going to go, after he was no longer with Light Realty, we wanted to go to Light Realty and see if we could actually keep our jobs, So at this time, we meet the older gentleman that was, I guess, the owner or whatever. And we meet him, and we're there. First, the secretaries, told him we wanted to talk to him, so he let us come back there in the office, and then we told him we don't know what's going on, but, dude come and told us we didn't have a job anymore. We was just wondering if we could keep our job. And what the old man said, well, a lot of money come up missing that was unaccounted for. And this happened in multiple places as time went on that I've experienced. But he said, and the dude couldn't account for it, so we had to let him go. And then we was like, what's that got to do with us? He said, well, I just decided whoever was working under him that he hired, just to let all them people go too. Because, you know, he just said money come up missing and they couldn't account for it. So he just wanted to let him go and his whole crew go. And that was the end of working for Light Realty. But we enjoyed working for Light Realty because like I said, we made good money and stuff. And I don't know if dude just mishandled money and stuff while he was in charge of the money and stuff. But I've seen this happen as years pass again and again and again at different places. But one thing I've learned that when these people work for like a corporation or something like that, and this happens a lot of places, just a lot of people just don't get caught doing it. But this happens a lot. But once people's got access to a certain amount of money and stuff like that, then they start trying to figure out ways to swindle money, And I don't know why they don't do that, because usually they get paid pretty well, But I think it's just greed that, that happens with people. But anyways, one thing that I've seen over time, that when you're working for a corporation or a big business, got a lot of money, and they let you control some of the money, and then you figure out ways to swindle money for your own wealth, most of the time, you're not going to jail. You're just going to end up losing your job. And this is what I've learned over the past, watching people do this. Not literally watching them, but hearing about people doing this and then seeing the outcome of it. And but what it is once they miss money and then the people can't account for it, instead of making a big publicity about it and making their company look bad, they just let that person go and they just end up taking the loss, And I guess they feel like being a big corporation and all that, you just don't want all that negativity gravitating to your business, and then people hear about it and stuff like that. But this is my story, so you're gonna hear about it now. but anyways, and that's what happened, and then, I don't know what dude did, but that's just what the old man said, and he was the owner. So he was just saying that there was some money unaccounted for that dude couldn't explain. So if you can't explain where the money went to, instead of them like trying to take you to court and put you in jail and all this other shit, and then people get wind of it and then put it in the newspaper or on the news or whatever, and then it just really makes your company look bad. It makes you look like you got poor judgment on people that you hire in a high up position. So that's what had took place at Light Realty. And as years passed, I ran into them incidents with other people that was in charge too. So it's really just, it happens all over, But a lot of people, a lot of companies, big companies, they just like to keep it quiet and just get rid of the person because they just don't want that, negativity being around their company or corporation or whatever. But don't get me wrong though. I'm sure, like I've seen on TV, like what is that called, American Greed? I'm sure people seen that show. Now that show, it tells about a lot of stuff like that too. But them people, ends up going to jail, you know. So I guess it just depends on what business it is or what corporation it is or how much money's involved, maybe. That could have a lot to do with it. But you know. But I would say it would have to be, I would say it had to be in the millions for somebody to actually, you know, something like that to happen, you know. And the reason I'm saying that is because there was another incident at another corporation where some new guys took over and stuff like that, and then we had a good guy running the company. Then he ends up losing his job. But this incident I think was set up. I think dude got set up and he had to take the fall for it. Is what I think happened. But anyways, the story that I got from the new bosses, that $1 million come up missing, and he couldn't account for it. And this is at a totally different company, a corporation, and he couldn't account for it, so they ended up letting him go. I just found it odd that this guy knew the whole story, but this guy might have been blowing smoke up our ass because he didn't just tell me; he was telling a group of us that worked at the company, and we were just regular workers. But anyways, he said something about because the guy that was in charge, this guy was a good dude, and he knew his shit as far as keeping a company going and all that. And this only occurred when these new guys came, and the company didn't really check these guys out too well. And so it's a lot of, but they ended up losing their job too because they probably got caught doing the same shit, swindling money, and just couldn't explain where the money was at. So they ended up losing their job too. But they were saying that they just got a better position and stuff like that, and you know. But that's just kind of incidents I've ran into over the years at different companies, and different folks, and stuff like that. And I was just like, you know. But, when we worked for Light Realty, we really did a good job and, made good money. And we was really pissed off that guy, because he basically just screwed us out of our job by doing some shit that we had no knowledge he was doing. You know what I mean? It's like, but